morning. Good morning from Lawrence, Kansas. Happy Mother's Day, all my friends out there. If you're not a mother, you have a mother, so happy day to everybody. And what's everybody doing today? Let me know what you're doing. Are you sewing? Are you cooking? Are you maybe lucky to have some kids over because that's your bubble? You're lucky if you are. We are just by ourselves today. I've got Carl, my sweet husband, behind the camera. You say hi, honey.
Hi.
And he's getting really good at zooming in right now. So I'll let a few people hop on, and what I'm going to do today is just show you the cluster. So the other day I did a sashing that was just circles, this what I'm calling textured circles going across the sashing. Today I'm going to show you a cluster. They're really, really simple, and I think everybody gets a little bit caught up in I can't do it. Yes, you can. If you can do this, so do this. Everybody do it in the air. You can do that motion because you can do an O. If you do an O this way, if you do an O that way. Just air draw. Okay, but I'm going to draw it for you so you can see how simple it is. And then people say, how do you get to the next one? You just go to the next one. If you're in the hard thing about showing this on camera is that I'm in white, and I'm sorry, maybe one day I'll put a piece of black on and we'll do it in lime green, but white's hard to see, but at least you can see my motion, and he's going to zoom in really close and see if we can see the thread. So it's just a cluster of circles. Just cluster them. You're not going to see, if you're in the same color thread as your fabric, you are not going to see anything but texture. So don't get caught up in it. Don't worry about it. And I can tell you that if you go around a circle 15 to 20 times, you're going to eventually get a circle. So I'll show you how I start that. Somebody just asked me, how do you get the blue pen out? So these are my favorite blue pens. They come from Japan, so you can't get them right now. They're Adger Chaco, A-D-G-E-R, that's rubbed off, C-H-A-K-O, Ace Pen. They're blue water-soluble markers, but Clover makes them. There's a few brands that make them. There's also Leonis, L-E-O-N-I-S, and they're short little markers. I've got a bunch of those over there, but they aren't coming from Japan right now, so you really can't get them. But any blue marker will work. To get the blue marker out is thanks to my friend Becky Collis, who taught me this a few years ago. 1 cup of cold water, and I like ice cold water. Sometimes I even put ice in it. And then dissolve a heaping teaspoon, maybe a little bit more baking soda into that. Let it dissolve, and then put it in a spray bottle, which I usually have right around here. Put it in a spray bottle and just spray that on. It'll take it away. It takes it away forever. If you don't use that baking soda mix, the blue will come back. And Becky told me that it changes the pH of the pen. So I've done this on some really heirloom pieces, and I've never had anything come back. I've even ironed after I've done that mix and that removal, and it doesn't come back. So I think it's pretty reliable. Now, 50 years from now, I can't tell you what's going to happen. So that's the blue pen. You can also put it in a cup and then take a Q-tip. So if I'm working on a really fine piece, I'll take a Q-tip, dip it, and then just take off those marks if I don't want to spray a whole thing. So a lot of times I don't put a lot of marks on. I just put dots, registration dots. Today I put a circle, the whole circle I'm using because I need to get that in my head and get the muscle memory so I can remember what that circle looks like. So let me get the right pen. Don't use the wrong pens on the wrong surfaces. Don't pick up your Sharpie to work on your fabric. Okay, so here's my space. Can you see that okay, honey? Does that come out? Okay. So what I've done, and I'll go to the fabric in a minute, I've used a ruler just because it's one I have, but you could use anything. You could use a quarter. Oh yeah, if you need something to outline, use a quarter. That's about the right size. So I've put all these on my fabric. Now, if you want to practice on paper, I suggest you hold the pen like this because on a long arm, this is how it's going to go, all right? If you're on a sit-down machine, of course, you can use it this way because you're doing it more like your handwriting. So think of it like an O in your handwriting. All right, so it doesn't matter where I come from. I've just ditch stitched right before I came on here, so I ditch stitched right down like this, right? Then I just came to about right here, and then I made this circle. Okay, and that's probably what it looked like. But then after I keep, let me see if I can do this so you can see it. After I keep going round and round and round, and at some point I try and get that center circle correct. Okay, I've got a circle. I stopped here, I go around again. It doesn't matter. I can make a pretty lopsided circle, but at some point I'm going to make it more. It'll just become more circular. Then I stop here. Start on my next one. Stop here. Start on my next one. Here. All right. So you see how I go all the way down. Whoops! I wouldn't have done that. Stop here. And then I can end up right here and I'm in the ditch and I can go do the rest of my business, okay? So we're gonna now go stitch it. Okay, so I've ditched. So yesterday I was trying to decide what to do with this big block. So you all have seen me work on this one, right? So we did the green, I think, the other day. And then I did this sashing. And then I decided to, let me show you this real quick if you can see it. I just continued these lines. So there's a secondary design that's beginning, and we'll see what that looks like when it's all done. I have not figured out what to do in here yet. A lot of times I design on the fly because I'm not quite sure what I'm doing, but I know what I really like, and I knew I really liked this shape. Okay, so I decided to take this into 3 quadrants. You know, sometimes separating things is a lot better. I didn't want to look at this as a whole block, and they were separate pieces, so I made them separate pieces. And I want to balance these circles, so I wanted them someplace else in the quilt. So this is where I'm getting them. So all of these little panels all over here are going to have this cluster of circles. Okay, so let's go start here. I've taken this because it's what I have nearby. I also could use a quarter because that's the size, but I have this Handy Quilter mini circles ruler, and this was the right size. So this is all I did, and I'm not crazy about measuring. I'm not a big measurer. I just go. So this was my spacer. So I drew that, do that. I spaced down this far. Do this one, that one, and that one. So then I'm going to space down, do that again. It doesn't have to be the full circle. You just need a visual and a space. And I didn't quite have the same space, but visually it will be fine when I get down here. So I've got all those circles. They're not exactly perfect, but it's just a reference mark. Okay, and I've put my needle, I backtrack a lot. You know, my work is not really for, it's not ever for show. It's not for competition. And so I don't worry too much about backtracking. I know some things do end up in shows and they do go compete, but they never mean to when I'm stitching them because I'm just here having fun. So let me get myself over to the middle. So I'm just in the middle of what this circle is. I'm going to see if he can zoom in. Might be loud for just a minute. The light. Let me change the light, because I can do that. Lighting is really tough here. Is that better? I don't think you can do that. You can back up just a little bit. Okay, I'm going to keep it a little bit dark because I think we can see a little bit better. Okay. Oh, and I am at 14 stitches per inch. So when I work in circles, I always work in 14, 15, 16. I hardly ever go lower than 13, even for a regular quilt, because I like the stitching to be small. And when you're doing curves, you want your stitching, your stitch length to be smaller to make the curves better. All right?
Come over here.
Okay, that's better. Okay, so that's maybe my first circle. So you can see it's not perfect, and you know, it's, if you can see that, it's close to that, it's far away from that. But when I start just texturing, and you can do this on a sit down, on a Sweet 16, on your domestic, it really doesn't matter. It all is going to look the same. So I'm just going to keep going around and around and around. All right, here we go again. Okay, I'm going to start halfway. If you need that halfway spot, so halfway, let's back up a minute, would be right here and right there. So I don't want to go any further. That might help. I don't want to go any further than that halfway spot. Let me turn the light up a little bit. I am working on a Handy Quilter Forte. Let's turn it up really bright. What does that do?
Fine.
Okay, so I'm on a Handy Quilter Forte, and I can adjust my lighting, which I love. I can adjust my lighting any way I like, so we'll see if that works. It's really hard white on white. So I'm at the middle point right there, and now I'm going to try and just make that whole circle. So I kind of touch the half and each border, and then at some point I'm going to try and hit that middle circle. I know somebody told me yesterday they were too embarrassed to show what they'd done. Don't be embarrassed. So these are the ones I've already done, and if you looked at each one, they are not perfect circles, are they, honey?
Pretty good.
Well, but they're not perfect, are they?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. That's all I want you to say. Okay, so I've kind of done my outside line, and I've gotten that inside line pretty good. So now all I have to do is play and fill that middle in. And then I'll go over here, and if I didn't get to the half, I can just really scribble inside there. It doesn't matter. Nobody's going to see that. So I've gotten to the half, and now I'm going to go do the next circle. Okay, that gives you an idea. I've got to the half here, and so I'm going to go do that next one. What's fun too is it's making another secondary design. So in this little spot, I get this nice little diamond shape. Okay, so let me talk for just a second. People always ask me, am I in manual or I'm stitch regulated? I am in stitch regulated mode right now. You could do this in manual if you don't have stitch regulation, which I'm going to show you that in a minute. Let me show you on a Handy Quilter, for instance. You see I'm at 14 stitches per inch. I'm going to switch over to manual, and my manual's really off. I've got it set pretty quick, so I'm going to come down. So a manual setting is when you just want the machine to go and you are making the stitch length. And you could do that on this if you wanted to go really fast and get it fluid and just make them as quick as you could. So I like the stitch regulated length, so that's why I choose regulated. But I'm going to do it in manual so you can see what the difference is. It also makes things move very, very nice and very fluid. So if I'm doing a lot of feathers, if I'm doing a lot of pebbles, I will put it in manual mode. But some of you just have manual, so you don't have stitch regulated. So let's see how fast I can do those circles in manual. So let me get myself over here first. Okay, so I'm going to do this one, then I'm going to go over here, and it's going to go pretty quick, and even the man doesn't know what's going to happen here. Okay, that's fast. I like a little bit more control than that, but you could do them in no time at all. So manual, regulated. I'm using glide thread. I have 40 weight on right now. White. What else can I tell you? Have you seen any questions, or am I going to answer some things along the way? Nope, just people watching. Okay, that's my son.
What handy quilter machine are you using?
I'm on a Handy Quilter Forte. Here, you can zoom out, babe.
Well, I can.
See, yeah, or I mean, you can just show it. So I'm on a Handy Quilter Forte, and what's my table length?
12 or 14? 12?
12? 12? I can't even remember. I started out with a Fusion 8 years ago, and I sold that to Mary Jane Hyman, and she loves it. I know it has Pro Stitcher on it, and then I got my Forte about 3 years ago, and I have a Pro Stitcher on that too. But I use Pro Stitcher. I love it. I couldn't live without it, but I use it mostly for edge to edge and kids quilts and things I want to get done. So this was a vintage 70s 80s little top that I got in a bunch of given things. Peggy Sullivan in Kansas City gave me about 5 tubs of quilt pieces, parts, linens about 2 months ago, and she so kindly just gave them to me, and this was in there. So I took there was little ties in it, and I just thought it was so cute. I had to quilt it. So
what size needle are you using?
Size needle. Glad you asked. Where are they? Let me look at my tool spot here. I'm using a Schmetz ballpoint. Let me talk about these Schmetz. Love Schmetz. I sell them. They're in, if you want to go to the Shop Now button on this page, they come in, I sell them in 14, 16, and 18 because those are the only sizes I would ever use. So I'm on a ballpoint. And I'm going to give you my spiel on Schmetz ballpoint needles because I love them so much. They will change your quilting. These are for a long arm only, so they have to be a round shank. They do not work, that I know of, in an A1, a Bernina, because it's a flat back needle. APQS, I've had some people say they work, some don't, but if you are on a 134 system, so you need to have 134 showing on your Gross-Beckert needle package, it will work on yours. They are $10 for a pack of 10. The best part about these is one needle, and I show this, I keep a wipe-off marker, so I use a wipe-off marker. Let's see if Carl can get this. This is the last time I've changed the needle. Let's see, where is it? August 2019, and it tells me my needle size. I'm on a 16, which is what I use all the time. I can't tell you I've ever changed, but I do keep the others. So a 16 is good for 40 weight thread. That's your general thread weight. As you get, as the needle size, an 18, as you go higher in needle size, that is for a thicker thread. So something like a King Tut, something lower than 40. So a 30 weight thread would be for an 18. If you're going into the 60, 80, 100 weight micro quilter type thread, you'd want a 14. But a 16 is pretty standard. So back to why I love these, they last forever. So I haven't changed my needle since August. That's unlike a Sharp. A Sharp I would change every quilt. I quilt 6 hours a day at least. So one of these needles will last me, you know, I can do 3 needles a year probably. So if you buy a package of these, I don't want you to order them again for probably 2 years. And nobody believes me, but until you start using them, I don't change it until something happens to my thread. Like if something breaks or I get shredding, but you will not get shredding or breakage. You know, any long arm loves to go left to right. I don't care what your brand is, but the minute you start going right to left, some machines struggle, some don't. But timing issues, if your timing goes out just a little bit, these seem to make up for everything. So these are my happy needle. So like I said, no shredding, breaking, left to right. I do a lot of straight line stitching. I love to just you know, that's my exercise, walking back and forth, back and forth. I will not have any breaks or shreds. These do not get a burr in them like a Sharp, and that's why they last so long. So you're not getting a burr on this needle because it's already been, you know, that ballpoint already has had a change to its tip. You cannot physically see the difference. You can't feel the difference between a Sharp and a ballpoint. And people say, oh, I thought ballpoints were only for knits. Yes, for sewing. I'm not saying this is for sewing. This is for quilting. So quilting, they also do not put holes in your fabric. So a ballpoint spreads your fibers, right? So it spreads, it does not puncture. So a sharp actually puts a hole in your fabric. It's small, you probably can't see it, but it will put a hole in your fabric. Batiks, you can stitch with a batik and there will never be a hole if you have to unsew something. Question.
Do you always use the same color thread on top as in the bobbin?
I do. I balance. I don't really care about the back of the color back. If you try to do 2 different colors, you can do that. I've done it before, but it's really hard to get everything to lie just right. So I always balance my threads. If I have glide in the top, I have glide in the bobbin. I wind my own bobbins. I believe in that because I want to touch the thread, which I do touch it. There's a video out there. If you go to YouTube and you Google Kelly Klein bobbin winder, you'll see how I wind a bobbin, especially on a handy quilter bobbin winder. But I actually take all the thread through my fingers. It comes off the thread mast because I want to make sure there are no nubs or knots or anything in my thread. Okay, needle size. Anything else we need to talk about? Anybody have questions? No, we're good? Okay, I'm going to try and quilt today. I hope you guys get to too. I hope you're not cooking or cleaning. Go have fun, go outside, and make it a great day, okay? See you guys. I'll answer any questions below. And if you're wondering where to get anything, my lovely little rulers, needles, it's in that Shop Now button on my page. All right? Thank you all. Have a great Sunday. Bye-bye.